Okay, let's first load in our footage. Hit the right mouse button, go to Image and Read. Choose our rifleman here and open. Then hit 1 to connect our viewer to our footage. Let's first of all also check our project settings. Go to Edit, Project Settings, and then under the format size right here, choose, and now you can't probably see this, but choose 1920 by 960. That's exactly the size of our footage right here, and that's also the format that we're going to be working in. Okay, we can close the project settings. And since this is green screen footage, let's start with the key first. So hit Tab, and since this is green screen footage, let's start with the key first. So hit Tab and enter Keylight, and that will open our keyer right here. Now in our Keylight menu here, we have the screen color, and just click on the screen color and you get a color picker right here. And if you hold down Control, then you can sample colors. But as you can see, some really strange stuff is happening. The image is flickering and we've got black. That's because Nuke is trying to sample the color that it's choosing at the same time. So if you hit down Alt, you can actually sample the color of the original footage, meaning the green right here, and it won't choose the black or the blue or any of the other colors that you're seeing at the moment. If you also hit Shift, then you can drag, then you can create a sample area, and that means the color in this area is sampled, so you'll get an average green. Now, if we sample color values from different area, this is not an additive process, so you're not like with other keyers choosing another patch of green, adding that to the key, and another patch, and so on and so forth. As you can see, we're getting different results for all the different areas we're choosing, but it's not adding them to one final key. So if we sample an area down here, then our key down here is pretty nice, but we still have contamination at the top. Other way around, of course. Now, how do we get rid of this contamination? If we go into the screen slider and just move that up and down, you can see it's now decreasing our contamination up here. But at the same time, I'll just push this to an extreme, you can see that we're losing our fine edge detail here on the hair. If I go back, we've really got fine hairs here. And if we increase our screen gain, we're losing all that. Now let's go back, hit 1. We've got tons of other adjustments we can make here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but in the screen map menu, we can also start clipping the blacks. And as you can see, that's taking care of some of our contamination. And again, just as an extreme, we're also losing our edge detail here. So I guess to an extent that's okay, we just don't want to push it too far. Now, as we've already discovered, we're getting different results wherever we sample a patch. And for this, in this case, we would have a pretty nice key around his body right here. But again, hair would be very difficult. We've got a lot of contamination. On the other hand, if I sample maybe this area right here, close to his hair, we can see, okay, maybe it doesn't work at the moment, but let's see if we can get a nicer one. Not quite sure where to actually sample. Let's have a look. Still not quite there. Okay, Well, what I wanted to say, I mean, I can't make it happen at the moment, but it becomes pretty evident in a sec. I'll show you. So if we sample an area up here, we might have contamination down here in the body part. So we won't really get either a nice key for the hair or the body. Now, right here in the View drop-down menu, we have Final Results. That's what we see at the moment. That means if we also load in our background, go to Image, Read, and then, oops, sorry. That'll be in our Images bin. And that'll be the street. That's our background plate. Open that. And you can see that our key light has different inputs, and one is background. So we'll connect that to our background plate. And up here in the view, if we go back to the drop-down menu, the final result gives us our key on black. And then if we go to composite, then it's already merging our foreground on top of our background. Now that can be quite nice because you can see what the final result will actually look like, or what the composite, better to say, looks like. And we can see we still have these pixels right here, the contamination, which we haven't gotten rid of yet. Now, there's also a view called Status. And if you choose that, then you can see we've got this black, white, and gray image. And it's just an exaggerated matte, so to say. Black means we've got transparent pixels. That's what we actually want for the green screen. And white actually means we've got a solid matte. Now, you can see we haven't got transparent pixels. You know, our green screen hasn't been separated properly, and we still have some half-transparent pixels in our foreground matte, and that should be a solid white. So the status can be very useful to check on how you're doing with your key. So it is also possible to actually sample values in the status view. Sorry, I have to, of course, choose my screen color again, my color picker, otherwise it'll do nothing. And you can see what the result would be if we'd keyed right here. And you can, of course, see all these values down here will create a nicer key for this area. I mean, still far from being great, but, and then around the head, we get all these areas keyed. Again, if I sample areas up here, I won't have a decent key down here. That was what I was trying to explain earlier, which we can now see clearly in the exaggerated status view. Okay, how can we tackle this? My suggestion would be to first do a key where we've kind of got the head and the hair really nice, and then do one for the body, and then combine them later on. So let's go ahead and do that. Go back to your final result, and let's sample some pixels right here. I mean, the ones that we just had were probably fine. Now, we still have contamination even though we're sampling pixels close to his hair. So let's adjust the screen gain a little bit and see what that does. Let's zoom in even further. We want to make sure that we don't lose too much detail. Let's keep it on this value. First, we still have problems up here. We can go to the screen matte and then start clipping the blacks. And that's getting rid of some of our contamination as well. Now, you've also got this clip roll back. And you can see if I roll back, let me undo the clip black for, no, let me do that, exaggerate that actually. And if we hit the roll back, you can see as I move the roll back and forth that it's actually opening my mask back up again, so it's kind of taking the surrounding pixels back in again. But we also have our contamination line right around there, so I won't use the clip rollback, but this can be a really handy feature as well. Okay, I think I'll check with my status here, and now you can see we still have contaminated area down here, but we're focusing on the head and hair, and this area has now really improved. Yet fine-tuning is really necessary, so have a play with the parameters and see what you can get out of this. Some of the stuff we can get rid of, you know, with a little bit of roto work, so we'll just draw a roto around his head. Let's go to the final result. Doesn't really matter, we could have stayed in the status as well. Let's add a roto paint node. I'll connect that to the background, and just to make sure that there's no alpha present already, I'll add a shuffle, and I'll shuffle in black. In fact, I'll just switch everything to black just to make sure. Okay, I'm ready to draw my roto shape. Just going to increase my viewer here a little bit, and now I'll choose the shape here, the Bezier, and I'll draw a roto shape just along the outside of his head here. Maybe just like this, and then up and close it as our final shape. And I'll quickly animate that just to make sure. I mean, you want to keep this fairly close, maybe not too close so it's not too much work. You definitely don't want to cut off any of the hair. And I mean, you should be pretty straightforward to roto out here, since he's not really moving that much, or at least, you know, there's not a bunch of complex moves. I have the feeling that sometimes there's a little lag still in the roto tool. I don't know if it's just my computer or, oops, sorry, no, that was definitely me. Okay, and the last set here, let's just scrub through to make sure we're not cutting off any bits of hair or head at some point in time. I guess that's fair enough. Now, how can I use my shape right here in my keylight? I've got this out M. Let me zoom in to show you. I've got this out M input, and that's my outer mask input. So I can connect that. Still nothing will happen. If you go into the keylight menu again, then in the crops down here, you see out M, outer mask component, and drop down menu. I don't know if you can, if that's still inside the screen capture window, but you want to choose alpha. Now that has cut off my head right here, so what am I doing wrong? It probably needs to be inverted alpha. There. Now we've got the head keyed out, and if we switch to the status, we now have this red area, and that indicates that this is the area that's being masked out. Now, back in the view, we also have the source alpha, there's no alpha coming from the source, or better to say, it's just a plain white full alpha, so to say, and then we can of course see only the source without the key. The screen matte, that's what we're achieving through, picking the color green and so on and so forth. Then we have our outside mask. We don't have an inside mask. That would be, the mask, a mask drawn for inside. But the outside mask is definitely our RotoShape coming in here. And we've got this combined matte, and that is our key combined with our RotoShape. So actually the matte that we're using to punch this out. Now there's also intermediate result, and I'm going to show you what that is in a second, but let's just put this back to final result for now. Now we've done our key for the head, and I'm just going to call this key head, so we know what we have right here. There we go. And let's add another key and focus on the body. So I'm just going to move this down here, just a little bit of space. I'm going to actually pull the background off the key. We don't need that at the moment. And I'm going to hit Tab and add another key light node. I'm going to connect, I didn't want to do that. I want to connect my background to our footage again. I'm going to connect the viewer to our key light, pressing 1. Did I choose the wrong node? Background, RGBA. Of course, I'm wrong connecting the background. The background is this thing right here, our background plate. Of course, I have to connect the source. So we'll follow pretty much the same procedure as before, but this time, again, the color picker, but this time we're going to sample some colors, maybe right down here. Let's see where we get the best result. I mean, this could be it. Let's swap to the status. Starting to concentrate on the body here, but still this isn't good enough, so let's crank up the screen a little bit, and we'll also go to the screen matte, and we'll start clipping the blacks. Again, this area here doesn't matter. We're going to draw a RotoShape around his body as well. But we have this really tough spot right here, and I think we won't probably get rid of that. I mean, we would have to kind of punch a really hard mask, increase this black clipping really hard, and we might lose some edge detail here. Of course, the edge detail isn't as important in his body as in the hair, but let's switch back to final result. As you can see, this would look pretty awful, and this takes away our contamination in this area. So, I mean, probably if you wanted to do this properly, you would have to add another keyer like we did for the head. For the body, maybe just for this corner, you have to build up, and there's no one key solution. So I think let's have a look at the combine matte, and then at the final result. And I think for now we'll still get away with an edge like this. I mean, it's definitely kind of, eating into our foreground here a bit, so that's not really what you want. This is just for a demonstration purposes, so be aware of that. I mean, this is also pretty difficult stuff to key, since this has already been compressed pretty hard, with JPEG compression and footage that, that's due to the size limitations and so on and so forth. But if you've got better quality footage, then of course you can also pull a better matte or pull a better key. Okay, let's also add a RotoShape around his body here. Just going to zoom out, move this over here, add RotoPaint node, and let's connect that to our shuffle right here. I'm going to move this just on top, and then I'm going to start my rotor shape. Going to just draw along the outside here, and usually, you know, we would kind of make sure that we don't include the head, but what I'm going to do is I am going to include the head, because I will need a rotor shape of the entire person, and we're just going to subtract that with the channel merge, and I'm just going to show you in a sec how that works. Let's quickly just animate this, make sure that it's fine everywhere. Maybe move this a bit closer. We don't want to cut off anything. The gun. Again, doing a roto here isn't a big deal. He's not moving that much. We could always connect the tracker to him and then, you know, attach the spline, but I think in this case it's just faster to do it like that. Maybe move this over here, there. Let's scrub it back through it, see if something's been cut off. This is a bit of a close call here. We'll just add another point. And we're definitely cutting off some of the barrel. Okay, I think that's it. So now I said we wanted to subtract the head, so channel merge. We're going to connect both of them, connect our viewer to the channel merge, go to alpha. Here we can see them combined. The channel merge shows us this is union, and if we just, you know, flip through them, we'll just choose the one that we think is handy for us. I think it's the minus. Now we can see that we probably should have looked at this before to avoid these little areas. Let me quickly fix that. I should have done that beforehand, but, well, I didn't. My fault, sorry. It's easy to fix. Now I should probably be careful that I don't go in too close with this shape right here, because otherwise later on I'm going to cut off parts of his head. But maybe the channel merge wasn't that good of an idea in the first place, but anyway, now I've started and I'm going to be stubborn and I'm just going to stick with it. I'm not capable of revising my decisions. And I've made another one right next to it, right here. Okay, and 90. Or just shortly before that. Okay, let's see. Does that work? Let's also switch back to the RGB side of things. And let me see if I'm probably cutting off something there now. Well, I'll leave it for now and then check later on if I really screwed up that bad. Let's see. Anyway, if we go to the alpha, we can see we've now subtracted the head from our body mat here, and we can now in our, let me scale this up again, we can now in our second key light, which we've keyed out our body, we can now attach again our out mask to our channel merge, and that gives us, switch back to the RGB, and the key, final result chosen. Now the thing that's missing is the out mask. I need to switch on the alpha. Now we've got the head, so inverted alpha. Now we've got the body. Now great, okay, we now think we can just add a merge and connect the body to the head and our viewer to the merge, and we're all done. But we've got one little problem. Can you see this line right here? That's where our two masks meet and the image is joined, and we might be able to fix it with a little blur of the masks, but that's not really the case. You will always have this fine line. So the merge right here doesn't really work. So this is one problem. The other problem is if we go to the alpha and we'll have a look, we don't have a solid alpha. So we've got values here that aren't 1. You can see right here, yeah, they should have a value of 1. That would be a solid alpha. Now the belt or whatever it is, or whatever you call this for the gun, was already a greenish tint, so it's being keyed out, and we've got other areas that aren't solid, and we've probably also got some areas right around here where the eyes, and also maybe green reflections in the hair were or something, and you can now definitely see our line as well, so we also have to fix that. Now we could just pump up our black and white balance. You know, here if I go in, let's go into the body. Okay, have a look right here. If I now start clipping the whites, we're getting rid of these half transparent areas right here, but we're also affecting the outside of our mask here, our details which we want to preserve. So how we'll fix this is, okay, I'll just go back to RGB. How we'll actually fix this is we're not going to merge the two properly right here. That wasn't really what I wanted to say. What I wanted to say is we're not going to merge these two keyed halves right here. What we're going to do is we're going to go into the key head, and then instead of choosing final result in the view, we're going to choose intermediate result. Now what that does, let me just go into the head. Let me show you one more time. Final result and intermediate result. Now you can't see a key at all, but if you have a look in the alpha, you can see that we've actually got that area which we wanted to key out in the alpha channel, but it didn't affect our key yet, but we didn't punch that out yet. And going to the key body, again, final result, and swap to intermediate result. Again, we haven't keyed that out properly yet, but we do have that in the alpha channel. And if we go to the merge, we're getting something odd now, and we are going to merge them here, but not all of it. We're just going to merge the alpha channels. So now, still no key, but in the alpha, we've combined both our alpha channels, where our two alphas join together. Okay, that solved one of our problems. The other one, that we still have some transparent Yeah, I could have left that open now, that we still have some transparent areas in our alpha. That problem still exists. So what we need to do is we need to create an inside matte or a core matte. Okay, let's add another key light, and I'm going to change the name right directly and call that core. And what we'll do with this, what we'll focus on with this key is just to get a really solid matte, get the core to be a solid alpha. Now again, I'm going to start by just sampling a colored area somewhere. Okay, this looks pretty alright. And then I'm going to go to Combine Matte, and now with the Screen Matte, I'm going to start clipping away. And we're not going to concentrate on any of the outline details, but we're going to concentrate on our transparent pixels right here. So what we want to have is a really solid alpha. And this looks pretty solid to me. Now if I go back to final result, I've got a still really solid alpha, but my key of course looks really bad as well. In fact, I'm going to really make this even worse by where is it? Screen dilate. I'm going to shrink this a little bit. Now, why did I do that? That's because I just want this hard matte to be right in the middle, and I want the fine edge detail to come in through my key of the head and my key of the body. So how do I do that? I go to, let me close this tab here, the screen matte. I'm going to go to the inside mask, and then in the source alpha, I'm going to switch on add to inside mask. And right away you can see we've now got our detailed on the outside back. Let me swap back to ignore and then back to add mask, and you can see how that really affects our mask here. Alpha, one more time, ignore, and then there we go. We've got the edge detail. Now let's have a look, and we don't have any half transparent areas here anymore. And if we go to our status, sorry, RGBA of course, and we go to ignore and add to inside mask, we can now see that it's got this colored area, and that's basically indicating that the inside mask is being affected by our changes. Now you can see that we still have some areas here where it's showing us that that we have some contamination, so we're going to again roto this out. But as we already did a contour shape of the whole person, of the whole talent, we're going to just use that in our out mask here to get rid of that stuff. And again, nothing happened. That's because we still haven't selected alpha, or better to say inverted alpha. And you can see it's getting rid of these areas right around here which we don't need. And you can also see that it's kind of now chewing away some of the areas which we actually want and need. That's because of my earlier mistakes, and I would have to go through and fix them so it looks nice. I mean I've already explained that I've done a little mistake here, but I think this shouldn't be too difficult to fix. And yeah, I think I'm just going to leave it like this for the time being. Or let me have another quick look. How bad is it? Okay. Please don't copy my mistakes. I'm sorry. There. There probably will be still some areas, but for now we'll just leave it like that. Okay. Let's switch back here. Go to our final result, and let's connect our background input to our final backdrop, and then switch to composite. And we've now removed our contamination right here, and we've got pretty fine details still in the hair, and down here it looks like we still have a pretty decent key. I mean, we do have these areas where there's a pretty hard edge, but and probably there will be some contamination in here, but again, it would take some time to fix this and have her play with the values, and it might also be necessary to do a separate key for the body down here, or a separate key for the gun. But you know now how to combine different keys to get the key that you want in the end. Okay, before we move on to the next step, I really want to show you one more thing, and that is often with green screen you've got heavy contamination, and the Keylight keyer actually starts removing some of the green spill in the hair. If we have a look in our original, can I see that somewhere? Or maybe you can see some green spill right here. If we go back to our final composite here, we can see that has been removed. Now you've got a slider for the screen balance in your keyer, and you can see how that's affecting it. If I pull it down, it's green. If I pull it up, then it starts tinting it in the contrary color. And you have to be a bit careful, because otherwise you might end up with some red areas in your hair, or like green edges. So choose this, have a play, but use it sparingly, and you'll get really nice results. I'm just going to leave it at the default setting for now. Let me also quickly clean this up. I must have pulled out 2 of these little helpers here. I didn't really want to do that. And just leave this here. Move this one up a little bit. There, that's better. And this already gives us our composite. Of course, we should maybe match the colors a bit, darkness, brightness, and so on and so forth. And we could also add a light wrap just here in some of the areas. It would be quite nice to get some of the background color, spilling over into the image, basically like the green did before. But I think we're going to add that later on. Let me think, or would it be better to just do that now, and then you've kind of have a complete keying overview, and we can still shuffle that around later? Yeah, I think I'll go for that option. So let's just add a light wrap node. So in the light wrap you have 2 inputs, one of course for your source, and then the other for your background, and I'm going to connect this right here, so that connects to my background. And let me, oh yeah, the viewer is already connected to the light wrap. Let me also zoom in a little bit, and I'm just going to crank down diffuse to 0 for a second, but instead I'm going to increase the intensity. Surprise, surprise, nothing's happening. That shouldn't be the case. I've forgotten to disconnect the background from our key because we don't want the composite at this stage. Otherwise, the light wrap cannot detect the edges. It doesn't know what's keyed out and what isn't if we've already merged it on top. So what we can do is just add a merge right behind our light wrap and then connect that to the background again. And that's probably because I've swapped my in and outputs. As you can see, we've now got B is under A, so we need to swap that around. You can do that by hitting Shift and X at the same time. So now we've swapped the in and output, the two inputs, sorry. Okay, back to our light wrap. As you can see, I've boosted the intensity up, and that creates this really harsh line around our keyed out foreground. And you can see, I can also adjust the tolerance. That means it kind of reacts to our highlights in the background. But if you kind of boost the tolerance, that means it'll only pick up on the brightest spots, but leave the rest alone. And you can see that happening here as well. So I'll just leave the tolerance down, and you could choose generate wrap only if you wanted to compose it on top extra. You can also disable the luminance-based wrap, the wrap that has to do with the luma tolerance here. This now just creates a line right around the edge, not depending on the background lights and darknesses. And you can also enable a glow, and the light wrap only stays inside our matte, but with the glow enabled, it actually expands. Expands. So we don't really want our intensity, our line here, our light wrap, that harsh. I just did that so we could see what we're doing, and we can just pull this down, adjust it to our needs, until we kind of reach a point where we think that looks nice. And then we can also start, to change the diffuse, and you can see how, in different parts or in the face, also here in the gun, how that's reacting to our foreground. It has to be used very subtly. You don't want to use this really heavy-handed. So if we toggle this on and off, you can see that even though we don't have like a clear outline going around him, it does make a pretty big difference. I mean, we've got this outline around the gun, which is not so nice, but in general, I think around our foreground here, it works quite nicely. Let's have a look at the hair. I think I've cut off something here at the top. That's why it's giving us this strange behavior. And thinking about that, this is probably because our background plate is a different size than our foreground. Let's have a look. 2088, and our foreground is 1920. So we should also maybe reformat this here. Of course, we've chosen our project settings in the beginning, but you do have to watch, when you feed in new footage, images, and so on, what kind of size they have. And in the output format, we'll choose our 1920 by 960. And we've solved our little issues up here. Okay, what could we still change? We could also add a color correction. I'm going to do that in form of a color lookup, and then we could just go into the master and edit this curve, maybe, you know, pull down the darks a little bit to kind of match these dark areas, and maybe keep the brights up because we have some pretty bright areas. And let's zoom out. Maybe we can tone this down a little bit more. I don't want to really make this too harsh, but something like that might work. We could also adjust the greens and so on and so forth. What I've just realized is if I boost this or tone this down, I was actually also affecting my background. So I'll just Control X and cut that out. And of course I need to add that before my composite over here. So now if I toggle this on and off, you can see we're now only affecting the foreground, and otherwise we wouldn't be able to actually match them. But you can see now it's a lot darker. Still we've got these brights, and have a play with it. Now the reason why I was thinking about this part a bit earlier is, of course, I wanted to give you a closed key section, but in reality, now that we have our composite, it's difficult to make changes to just the talent. So it could be that further on down in the flow we'll ignore this part for a while and add that in the end, and for now just stick with him keyed out on a transparent background.